Hello, Music Multiverse listeners, and welcome to yet another catalog review show. The band tonight grew out of a mod subculture in England, which has this fashion sense. I think it grew out of probably the late 50s. A modernist, that's what the mod stands for. You don't know, want to know the rest? As my wife would say, look it up. And by the 1960s, a freshly kicked out of school rock and roller wanted to form a band because he couldn't go back to school. And he called that band the Detours, which I think that might even be on one of these records there. So he does this, and he gets a bass player named John Entwistle, and who eventually would find a guitar player by the name of Pete Townsend. Daltrey, he had control of things, I guess, in the beginning, and because he was older. I guess when you're older, you get to lay down the law. He would be the deciding factor in the change of the band's name, and who could have seen that the coming of that was considered and done and finally done by somebody that was not among the people that were in the band. So, believe me, look it up. On the scene in the English area, those bars and everything, they were finding gigs everywhere they went. They had their sound was a culmination of the subculture of modernist mentality, but they kind of had this influence of sounds around them from the 60s. And they're certainly evident in those albums as they start, and then they finally make their album. There are those bands I won't mention because they're big names too. Their guitarist, not only a legendary rhythm and lead combination guitarist, but who would have guessed that it would become one of those songwriters that would have this epic writing bug, an epic writing bug, coming up with bombastic, complete storylines that would eventually feed two monstrous records, with double albums, we'll go concept records, and then one that, just never happened. I don't think it happened yet, right? And there's actually a band named after that. He left that one still sitting there, right? Well, who knows what might happen with that? Who would have known that a low ceiling moment in a club playing would light the fuse to the ruckus that would happen on stage and in many hotel rooms thereafter after he breaks his guitar on the ceiling by accident, and the crowd laughed because they thought it was funny. He did not think it was very funny, so he trashed the guitar. The rest is, history. In 1964, who knew that the growing band in the English circuit would have would garner an appearance by Led Zeppelin in their debut album? Yeah. It only made a B-side. What's up with that?
The A-side.
Yeah.
I can't explain.
It was eventually that from there, their ability to take that sound and times and sucking in genres, as far as I'm concerned, it might be a difference of opinion on the panel tonight, but to completely make something their own, which in their first albums might not have sounded completely their own. Well known for singles for just talking about their generation, to how fantastic their apparent vision is in Miles, to some deaf, dumb, and blind kid that could play pinball. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But then again, we've got Donnie Yen as a blind assassin in John Wick. So we'll let it go. Touche. Then there were times and things that you just couldn't explain. A magic bus. And of course, the politically charged and guruing to a spider named Boris. And finally, to the ultimate question, who are you? Well, that one's easy. This is The Who on Catalog Review Show. Roger Daltrey, Pete Townsend, John Entwistle, and of course, that drumming maniac, Keith Moon. So, on the panel tonight, what do I have here? He won't be fooled again, or will he? Ray Geska. He's been trying to find the magic bus for years, as well as the Polar Express. Damn, Armitage Hicks Maloney.
Thought you were going to say the short bus.
No, I was nicer this time. Next time.
Okay.
Next to me.
Yes. She knew this would all lead somewhere. Susie Q.
Hello.
And the man who put the Who in Who Are You, Jeff Crichton. Probably the only person on this show that knows the band as well as, someone who might have worked with him. I'm going to let it start with Jeff Crichton. And I believe, what did I say? We were going 12,
13.
13.
Wow.
Well, yeah, you've got your 13. You go
I'm
ahead.
doing 13.
Always
Yeah.
got to be different. It's the Jeffrey Crichton Show.
All right. So I'm
Belfast.
going to go with my baker's dozen here.
Okay.
And I hate, this is my third favorite band of all time,
Wow.
the Mighty Ooh. Only to be bettered by the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. So my number 13 album is Endless Wire.
Okay.
Not a lucky 13 here. Okay. Did anybody need a double album from this band at this point? No. I think this album's a mess. And once John Entwistle passed away, I started calling them, instead of the Who, the Two. And they should have called it a day when Entwistle passed. And so Endless Wire is not a good record at all. Nothing redeeming on it. Number 12 would be their album that came after that. Just a self-titled album called The Who. And it was a 2019 release. And I asked the question when that came out, why? This album, again, it's pointless and not very good. So that's my number 12. Number 11 would be Magic Bus. That's not on your list, but it came out as an American release in 1968 to coincide with the tour that they were on. And it's a compilation of singles and B-sides. And it's a decent record, not great, but it's decent. And it went along with the tour that year in 1968, which happens that my wife, who is cooler than me, went to see The Who in 1968 at the old Melody Fair with her older brother.
Wow.
Oh, cool. That's neat.
Wow. Melody Fair.
So there we go. There's 11, 12, and 13 for me.
We'll go. Then you got to go one more, right? Because we're doing 12.
Okay. All right. Okay. So number 10 for me would be Face Dances, which was their Warner Brothers Records debut. It had a great opening track and single, You Better You Bet. But to me, this album hasn't aged very well. Maybe Pete was saving his better songs for his own album for the Empty Glass record, which came out a year after that. Face Dance is okay. It was the first album without Mooney. Kenny Jones from the Small Faces wound up drumming for them for, I don't know, 3-4 years. And so Face Dances would be number 10 for me.
Let's go to Sue.
Okay. So I'm definitely a novice on this. I enjoyed doing this because I forgot how much I really like The Who, especially the songs that I like a lot. And I was like, oh, I forgot all about that. So, but there were definitely some albums that I really don't have a lot of comment on, and I'm kind of following Jeff's footprint, so I feel a little bit better now. But my number 12, I went Endless Wire. 11, I went The Who.
Or just Who.
2019. And then I don't know why I switched the order on these two. My 10 was A Quick One. Yes. And then I'm doing 9 too, or no?
Mm-hmm.
And 9, Face Dances.
Okay. Ray.
Well, I'll tell you, the thing is with The Who, I mean, for me, I started talking offline earlier. It's just like until Tommy, I think it was just a collection of great songs by the band. I mentioned Meaty Beady Big and Bouncy, which was a hits collection. For me, the '60s stuff prior to Tommy was, a lot of great hits. When it comes to albums, made it tough. I would say my top three are three of the greatest albums in rock history. Everything else is just a collection here. Um, Not to throw any, water on top of it, but The Who 2019, it made no impact with me. That's at number 12. Endless Wire, no impact with me. That's number 11. Face Dances, they started changing there. Right around that time, they started making that change. I think they only had one semi-good album after that. And then, I know Pete was doing his own solo thing and stuff, but not a whole lot of greatness in my eyes when it comes to an album. Great band, great live band, great album band. I don't know. Like I said, the top three are definitely great. So we need one more. That 12 to 9.
Yeah, you have Who, you have Endless Wire,
And
Face
then
Dances, and then number 9.
and then I'll go with It's Hard. It's kind of hard to put it there because arguably, one of their greatest songs ever, Eminence Front, was on that album, and that just anytime I hear it, it's literally one of the greatest records ever put together. It's just so great, and but the album, Athena, I think, was another album that I heard over and over and over and over again until I started to hate it. So the album just kind of bored me. That was number 9. It's Hard.
Okay. Damn.
Well, The Who, let me say, they've damaged me. I mean, this is the band that taught me about disabled people playing ping pong or pinball better than me. Pedophiles. What was with that uncle? What's his name?
Right.
Ernie.
The dying drummer. That was, oh my God, this guy. Oh, what's happening? But I have to say, they gave great content to Spinal Tap. Number 2, the end continues because The Who retired how many times?
Too
The
many.
final tour. My gosh,
It's coming up.
teasing me.
It's coming up.
So anyway, my number 12 is Face Dances. I was disappointed with that album. Don't need to say much more about that. Number 11, It's Hard. 19, Who from 2019. And on the next one, Endless Wire. I think I'm going to end up probably my top 3 are going to be similar to the older guys on the show with me. It's your turn.
All right. So I went down this rabbit hole. I believe this is a band that well, let's start by saying they've never had a number 1 hit single.
Oh, really?
No,
Which
never ever.
which should astound to some degree considering the
Yeah.
love for the songs, right?
Yeah,
But
right.
it shows you longevity in the pieces that they made that you would think would have been number 1 songs.
Right.
Number 1 album, not in the United States. In the UK, yes. So I started thinking about that as I went into that stuff that started the band. I am going to be completely different than everybody on the show because I think they were a production nightmare. I like cohesiveness. I like a record that can stand on its own and not be piecemealed and just shoveled. And there's some meat over here. There's some bad packaging over here. There's some really poor naming over here. There's a freaking commercial in one of the albums. I don't even know what the hell's going on. So I produced by a guy who had Tourette's. I don't know. Like a squirrel. Okay.
He's Tommy.
The Who, Sell Out, 1967. I don't know. They weren't selling out. I don't even know the title of the record. I didn't look it up. Not my bag of chips. I tried because there's actually an album that comes in around the same time of that I have much further up because it was. Now everybody says that's their fun record.
It is.
Okie dokie. Yes. Okay.
Great album.
Tommy, I tried listening to it today, and it was tough.
It's a great album. You guys are missing the point.
I'm missing the point. Yes, because 1967. Uh, Endless Wire. Yes, I will agree. I didn't need a double album. I tried so desperately in that one. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to make a 1980s record when you're a rock band and you're trying to be 80s. You know, stay in your lane. The keyboardist, shoot him. Shoot him now. Shoot him dead. Beat him up. Leave him in the alleyway because it's not happening. All right, you can't pull that off. It didn't work. It beats things up. Face Dances is my number 9. Shouldn't shock anybody. But I will say there are some bluesy elements there that I liked. And once again, they were overshadowed by a keyboard. You don't need a
I like
1980.
the keyboard.
I think you're
But you bet. Yeah, keyboard. Get rid of it. All right,
you're right,
back
Mark.
to Jeff Crichton.
All right, my number 999 is the 1975 album, The Who by Numbers. This album starts out with a bang, with the first 3 tracks, Slip Kid, However Much I Booze, and what's the single off that album? Help me here.
Which album?
Squeeze box.
Squeeze box, yeah. Mama's got a squeeze box.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it starts out with a bang and then it fizzles from there on out. I thought, I heard that album when it first came out, bought it, listening to it. These first 3 songs is like bang, bang, bang. And I felt like, wow, this is great. And then it goes downhill from there. I might go back to this album sometime soon. I listened to it about in June when I was listening to all the Who stuff. Now I'm listening to all their solo stuff. And I was expecting greatness from this album, being the follow-up to Quadrophenia. But after the first 3 songs, number 8 is Who Are You? Who? It was Moon's last album. Not that strong of an album. You talk about keyboards. This one was laden with it. Pete was dealing with a lot of drinking and drugs at that time, and Entwistle wrote 3 of the 9 songs. So you can kind of tell where Pete's head was at that time. The title track's great. Love that song. Sister Disco is okay. The song Guitar and Pen, which is really autobiographical from Pete, is a really good song. But Who Are You is number 8. And do I do 7?
Yeah.
Okay. That would be a quick one that was also released here in the US. It was called Happy Jack. And I have both versions of that. Their second album, not as strong as the debut, but really good nonetheless. To me, the title track was strong. I think that album got lost in the great music that was coming out in 66 and 67. But among the other great albums that were released in that time period. But the Who performed that title track, and it was an incredible performance when they performed a quick one on the Rolling Stones 1968 Rock and Roll Circus. It was a phenomenal performance. And then prior to that, I think in the fall, they played. Was that 67? Yeah, that's 67. I'll get to that.
Okay.
Okay, but a quick one, aka Happy Jack, is number 7.
Okay. Sue?
My next 3, I went with It's Hard, The Who Sell Out, and The Who by Numbers. I can't believe they never had a number 1 hit.
Wasn't that so disappointing?
It's so weird. Because I didn't even really start to recognize these songs probably until the 80s. And the fact that they were still popular, released in 67, just hitting my ears in the 80s. And okay.
Yeah, it's
Weird.
crazy.
One thing to say about that, their timing in the music scene is not exact. It's like being born too late or being born too early. They were up against Cream, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles. You know, there's a cornucopia of things going on that, and they didn't exactly, as far as when I'm listening, I know the influences, but
Mhm.
they didn't play to the. Although Townsend wrote a song to make sure it sounded like the Kinks, because he knew the record producer would hear it.
Uh-huh.
So he was aware, but they were
Yeah.
never, you know, they were obtuse to me, and especially in those first albums. They would write one that you'd go wow, and then the next one would be what and wow and what and wow. And okay,
Was I supposed to do
Ray,
one more or no? I'm good. Right?
Oh, you
you're
did
at
3.
6, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Ray, you're number 8,
Oh,
7, and
okay.
6.
Well said what you just said there, Mark. I couldn't agree with that more. That's exactly the sense, again, like I talked about until Tommy, that I got from the Who. Like, wow, what a great song, Substitute, Kids Are All Right, My Generation, I Can't Explain. Then the next track is like, what? So it just, I really had it, like Jeff and I were talking. I mean, prior to 1967, I mean, 67 is when album rock started. Prior to that, these bands were just putting out great songs, but they just weren't albums. Sergeant Pepper just changed everything. Everybody just that year just changed everything for albums, and they started to get better. So the Who kind of had that, I don't know, 10-year period where they were good to very good to at one point excellent. You know what I mean? And so I just struggled with a lot of their albums, but what you said there was right on.
Well,
I'm
they
gonna go
did.
with
They
number.
live that live thing, right? Let's not talk about it now or prior to now, but way prior, right? They I'm assuming that was something that gathered enough moss and enough power and enough downhill momentum that they were doing whatever they wanted to do live, and that's what
Yeah,
gave them the opportunity.
yeah, absolutely. So number 8, I'm gonna go with Who Are You Too. Who Are You as well. Um, uh, I remember, I vaguely remember when it came out because that was like what 70, 78. I think I was more,
77.
Oh
I think I
yeah.
was more into the Grease soundtrack than I was into the Who at that point.
Ah.
Um, but it's like, like Jeff said, that song is just awesome. Jeff, I got to ask you a quick question. I mean, not quite. I heard stories that they wrote that about the Guess Who.
No.
They wrote it like, "Who the are you?"
Yeah, no, they didn't write it
Okay.
about the Guess Who.
Oh,
But yeah, the title track was so fantastic. Had Enough is another good song that
Yeah.
John Entwistle song on there that I like too. But
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I don't know. Again, another incomplete album where you're just like, what a great song. And then you're like, what? And oh, that's pretty good. And then what? So, and then after that, a quick one. Uh, I mean, yeah, there's some decent songs on there, but again, that early, I don't know. Not me. Quick one. And then number 6 is that silly album from 1967 that I listened to today and I really wanted to work. I think you remember the band Everclear in like the
mhm.
early 90s? They did that
Yep.
they
Songs
did
from
the song with
from
I forget the album, it was had AM radio on it, right? So
songs from an
like,
American Movie, Part 1.
yeah, it's almost kind of like you after listening to the Who Sell Out, it's almost like they paid homage to that in their own way because they're both kind of trashy at one point, and it was
All the songs are about sad things at a higher pitch and a delivery. It's odd.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, I can see for miles, yeah, that's a classic song.
Oh yeah.
And the other one was what's it called? Mary Jane with the
With the
waving hand.
shaky hands.
With the
Shaky hand.
shaky hand,
Yeah,
and
that
that
was
was
that.
actually a release on radio. I can't even imagine like radio even going, "Oh yeah,
Yeah,
let's do that."
So that was a cool song, but I really tried, and I tried today
it's a great record.
to like it, and I don't. But it's number 6.
Oh, hey Deb, what you got?
Okay, so my number 8 is Who Are You? I'm not going to even expound on anything because I don't know anything about anything. I mean, can I talk about
Nothing.
Led Zeppelin?
Nothing.
Sorry, we did that one.
Okay, sorry. That's why you hooked me into this show.
That's all.
Damn
Hey, lay the breadcrumbs because I knew my flute playing wasn't going to get us there.
it. My number 7 is Who by Numbers, and number 6, a quick one.
All right.
Where did Crichton go?
He was so upset that I
Yeah, we've
trounced
been,
that,
we've been
Right.
making fun of Uso.
He's
Chuck is
gone.
Crichton.
he just sold out.
He just said he's got to reload.
Yeah, all right.
He got
That's all
kicked
right.
out.
I'll take my time in this one here.
Okay.
Okay, so my 8. Who are you? Yeah. They got the one track right and the rest just a music, you know, I don't know, there were just changes afoot. You could tell that they were coming. And that song, hey, I hear it every year, twice a year from Mass Singer. So, and I'm sure they get paid royalties on that son of a bitch, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's where it all goes.
Oh,
I'm
here we
surprised
go.
he hasn't. I'm surprised he didn't leave earlier, but okay.
Tumbling down
my
the hill
number,
here
my
now.
number 7 is the Who by Numbers, 1975.
Okay.
So there's a lot of emotion on this record. Townsend is, I think he's ramping up on the solo side of things. I think this is the Phil Collins moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's not Phil Collins.
Mm-mm.
And he ain't never going to be. It just, I don't know. He probably should have had Phil in the band when they had the opportunity, but they decided not to because then what would that have changed, right?
Oh my
Wow,
gosh.
right?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yes. My number 6 is Tommy.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, but besides a couple of tracks that are gangbusters, some of this is just musical filler that is good for an orchestra. It's good for maybe a long play. And I never saw the play, musical, whatever you want to call it. This is 1 hour and 15 minutes of 35 minutes of stuff that's probably palatable. Think of another brick in the wall, right? And there's these things that you like, and then okay, I'll wait for that next thing to come along, and I'll wait for that next thing to come along, and then nothing ever comes along here for a while, in an hour and 15.
That's because you have to wait for another brick in the wall.
There you go. Brick by brick.
Although anyway,
Okay.
my number.
Why don't you repeat your number 6, Mark?
My number 6 is Tommy.
What?
I'm sorry, but besides a couple of tracks and the pinball thing, I just
The
don't
pinball
care. It's like the Beach Boys. When I talked about them, I don't care about the beach. You want to know why? Because it snows most of the time here, and the beaches here will give you cancer. So I don't care, and I don't care about a pinball wizard. And no.
Oh my gosh.
No
Oh,
pinball and no surfing.
Blasphemy.
Blasphemy,
Wow.
but yeah, can't. I've tried that album so many bloody times.
We
and
may
this
have
is
to. We're gonna throw a coup onto our
coup.
host here.
back to Jeff Crichton as I made sure he could get back in time to.
All
Oh
right.
my God.
Okay. My
Your
number
6, 5, and 4.
6, 5, and 4. Okay. We got my number 6 is
No, 5, 4, and 3.
Well, he had
No,
13,
that
so
was-
he's trailing.
Yeah, he played.
Oh, I forgot. You're
number
always
6.
bringing up the rear.
Number 6 is a record I loved working in 1982 when it came out. We all thought at Warner Brothers Records that this was going to be the grand finale. When we started working It's Hard, the back was out. The band was back out performing again. It was a great tour. And Kenny Jones, no Mooney, but he was a steady drummer, and the band was in a really good frame of mind. We loved working Athena and Evidence Front, which became good hits for them. And I loved working the tour. I was honored I was able to bring radio VIPs onto the scaffolding to watch the show from Entwistle's side of the stage.
Oh, nice.
So I did it here at then Rich Stadium. Did it at the Carrier Dome in Syracuse. I have a great picture of my wife and Roger Daltrey from backstage at that show.
That's cool.
And then we went to the very last show on that tour in Toronto. And at the end of the show, we're hanging out backstage, and Entwistle said, when you go back to the hotel, we're closing the bar down. So why don't you come down and have a drink with us? So
Wow.
Mary and I got to have drinks with the Ox and Kenny Jones on the last night of that tour. So, all right, so that's my number 6. Number 5 is my generation, and including the deluxe edition of this album is phenomenal. It's a great record. You know, when that album came out, they didn't sound like anybody else. Really, they didn't sound like nobody else. There was nobody else on the scene that was like them. The title track is a classic masterpiece. They're all right. Was a great song. A Legal Matter. The Good's Gone is a phenomenal song. Circles and the deluxe features their great debut album. I Can't Explain, and the follow up to that. Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere. Great. That's an incredible debut album and one of the best debut albums of all time, in my book. Number 4, right? You want me to do 4?
Yeah.
Okay. That would be the album that nobody else here likes. And that would be
The Who's.
I'm telling you, it's a great album. I don't care what you say. You're actually wrong. And
they have beans on the album. Okay, there's a song about beans.
so you know what?
That should tell you all you need to know.
The Who Sell Out is a friggin' fantastic record. It's the commercials are funny, and they meant it to be, you know, a takeoff on, like, you know, radio. So with the commercials interspersed into the songs on that. I Can See for Miles is a classic song. Ray mentioned Marianne with the Shaky Hands. Harmonia, City in the Sky is a fantastic song. So is Tattoo. So is I Can't Reach You. So is Relax. So is Royale. And after that album came out, they made their big breakthrough in America when they performed at the Monterey Pop Festival in June of '67.
Yeah.
And that kind of catapulted them to the next level. And they also performed on the Smothers Brothers comedy show
The Smothers Brothers.
as well. And they did My Generation.
Yep.
And at the end of that song, he was kicking over the drum set. Pete was smashing his guitar.
Yeah.
And Moon's drum set, the bass drum, blew up. And
See?
and that
Spinal Tap.
that's what caused Townsend to lose his hearing in his ear.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a great trivia.
Like, grow up,
Not that it's
boys.
pretty less.
So the Who Sell Out, fantastic album. That's my number 4.
The Smothered Brothers were hiding at that point because they're just so docile, and you know,
My God.
they're like,
We're like,
oh,
what the
Tommy-
hell
Tommy-
have we gotten ourselves into?
Tommy Smothers played the great dumb guy, but he was really intelligent, and he was a rock and roll guy at heart.
oh, I didn't know that. I have several of the records, and my father, you know, played those,
Of
and
course.
it was so much fun just to, you know, the vicious blue puma instead of an
Yeah.
ox. Hilarious stuff. Yeah, I could see all that happening. I think there's actually a video of that performance on YouTube.
There is. Yeah, you can go on YouTube and see it.
Hey, Sue,
Mhm.
what you got for your 5, 4, and 3?
Well, I was just gonna say I'm kind of surprised that you didn't like the quirkiness of that album, because it kind of reminds me, like, maybe they influenced De La Soul and Corky and the Juice Pigs.
Mhm.
You used to have a sense of humor, but anyway.
I don't have it when it comes
Oh.
to the no, it just there
Oh,
was
there's a jab.
wrong sense and wrong humor.
All right.
The English humor, man, sometimes just Benny Hill I can get, but that's
English.
All right.
All right, back to my list, which, you know, is it right or wrong? I don't know, but
No, there's no wrong here.
unless you're Alex.
Yeah.
that never gets old.
My number 5 is Who Are You?
Okay.
Which it's probably the first song I ever recognized by them, but who knows? And this seems so weird to be placing this one here, but I went with My Generation.
Okay.
Number 4, and number 3, Quadrophenia.
Okay. Mr. Ray.
All
Are
right,
you
five,
you
four,
not falling asleep
three.
over there with the band, are you?
I know.
You look
I
very
know.
comfy.
Where's your
All
blanket?
lay
It's
down
like, lay down,
together
boys.
with the
Grow up.
band.
Enough of breaking your guitars and kicking your drums over. Let's get real here. All right, so number 5, Who by Numbers. Yeah, Squeezebox was great. Again, it's I just keep coming back to it. I just don't find this to be the greatest album rock band. But top 4, yeah, the top 4 were good. So number 4 is their debut, My Generation. I think more so. I mean, there were a number of good songs. There were a number of not so good songs. Um, as was the case in most of the British invasion bands when they put out full albums because there was too much filler. But the thing is, number 4, I would put that album there is because of the influence that they had on many rockers over the years to follow. I mean, of all the British invasion bands, the Who was probably the closest to being a metal band, if you will. Whereas the Stones or the Beatles or you know. Some of those other British invasion bands weren't so much going that direction, but the Who really influenced a hard rock generation to follow, and so appropriately titled My Generation at number 4. And then I'll put Quadrophenia at number 3. I think it was a really good album. I didn't love it as much as the couple of the prior albums, but there were a number of good songs on that made it worthy of listening to. I think I mentioned this back around when we were doing the Yes versus Genesis show. I just never been a prog rock, art rock kind of guy, and Pete Townsend was definitely trying to do that at this point. I mean, it was his second or maybe his third rock opera by that point, and a lot of good stuff about it. And Process of Elimination puts it at number 3 for me.
Okay. Damn.
Okay, my number 5 is Sellout. I did like that album. I'm sorry, Mark. I think, yeah,
Thank you, Deb.
you're welcome, Jeff. I mean, I feel bad that I've been saying so many bad things about your band, but I have to
Worst
say that
album cover of all time. No.
if I had stop it, if I had those memories that you have, Jeff, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I subjectiveness does take a role in all this, Number 4, My Generation, and number 3, Quadrophenia. Of course, I can see for miles in the quadro. Like it just this is where you get where it's hard because you say you love an album because you can pinpoint 1 or 2 songs, and that's just how I roll. I mean, I can't even tell you if you threw out some Led Zeppelin songs, I wouldn't be able to tell you what album they were on, even though they're my favorite band. So I love a band for their songs, maybe not so much for their albums.
Right
And
on.
what those songs meant when I was hearing them on the radio or at my cousin's house, sneaking up to her room because she was older than me and I was allowed to listen to the bad music. So there's some subjective, heartfelt things on this catalog for me as well. So that's what did I do? 5, 4, 3.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. I'll just
Well, here
keep
comes
it.
Debbie Downer.
Yeah. I'll a quick one.
Okay.
At number 5.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Was it Psyche? Was it psychedelic?
No.
Maybe it was. Trippy, odd places.
Maybe.
But considering the flow of records, this was really close. See, this is the side I like. Like the Sellout. I think that wasn't that the same the year after. Yeah. So if they would have stuck with the quick one and not gone into the commercial comedy routine, because when I look at those guys, they don't look funny to me. They don't seem funny. Roger Daltrey, if you sing like that, you better not be funny because you can sing, brother. I don't need you a humperdinking. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
But no, I'm just being funny.
Humperdinking.
Number 4, My Generation. Yeah, solid debut. It's where it all starts. They, I'm sure somebody was sitting in there going, "Wow, that song's gonna crush it." That's just how true is that?
True
I
that.
can't even imagine what these would have been live, etc. They're still in this record, there are some. What just happened?
Yeah.
I
Oh,
get.
yeah.
I just there's this. I still the influences. That's got to be hard. Beatles are there. The Beach Boys are there. All this thing is coming in. I don't know. Maybe that's why it sits there for me. Anyway, number
They
that.
weren't trying. They weren't trying to be bigger than those.
No. But I like you said, he wrote the one song because of the Kinks, and he knew that the one producer was going to come, and he knew that he had to have it, and he did it. Smart. My number 3, Quadrophenia. Yeah. This is the for intensive like against Tommy, where I put Tommy at 6. Quadrophenia it's a rock opera. I get the rock side of this. I get the brick in the wall side where the music comes back again and around again. And of course, that lyrical line that's always, lean on me. Yeah, that's damn right. It makes a better point than some guy playing pinball. All right. Finish us up there, Mr. Crichton, with your number 3, 2, and your number 1.
Okay, my number 3. Man, was I excited when this record came out. Oh my gosh. I remember bringing it home and playing it like 3 times in a row. So I was a record player almost for 4 hours playing this album.
Wow.
And
Wow.
Quadrophenia, my number 3 pick. And some days it could be number 2.
Okay.
But the music on it's great. Daltrey's voice is like at its epic height by this time. Townsend wrote some great songs. When the Real Me starts out with a bang after the instrumental intro. The Punk and the Godfather is a great song. 515 is a rock radio classic now. Townsend's song "I'm One" is fantastic. Even Mooney gets in the action with Bellboy, and but the closing track "Love Reign Over Me" is to me one of the brilliant rock songs of all time, and Daltrey holds that note at the end just as powerful as he does on "Won't Get Fooled Again." So, a movie came out a few years later in '79, which was okay. And after they finished touring, we thought in '82, 7 years later, what's happened? They go out on the road and do a whole summer tour of doing the Quadrophenia album. And we saw that at the stadium as well. And it was powerful and great. So Quadrophenia is number 3.
We all had Quadrophenia at number 3.
And
Wow.
depending on my mood, it could be number 2 tomorrow, and it could switch with the number 2.
I'm glad we did the show today so we can have one thing we all have in common.
Yeah. Now my number
It's
2
what
is
binds us.
Yes.
The love that binds us.
Tell me number 3. No. Okay.
yeah. So number 2. Wait a minute. Can you hear me?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Can you hear
Are
me?
we doing 2 and 1 now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can
Yep.
you hear me?
Okay. So it's a 1969 masterpiece rock opera. It was a great tour in 1970, where the second half of all their shows back then were introed as we're going to go do this opera about Thomas. And the deluxe Live at Leeds album, which we'll talk about that maybe after, includes this performance as well as the equally great Live at Hull album. When they performed part of Tommy at Woodstock, it was epic. And so many great songs on this album, right? It was fully staged. Versions were done by first the Seattle Opera in 1971.
Ooh.
The London Symphony Orchestra did one in which I have the album of that in 1972. It had guest performances. It was like a who's who of rock royalty back in '72. Rod Stewart was on there, Ringo was on there, amongst others. And the movie that came out in '75 was okay. But again, stemmed a soundtrack from that. And years later, what, 15, 20 years later, it was done on Broadway and wound up winning Tony Awards from that.
Was it called Hamilton? Oh.
No, this is better than Hamilton.
I get the names all screwed up. We had Hamilton, we had Tommy, we had Thomas the
And,
Tank Engine. I don't.
And actually, in 2018, Daltrey did a live orchestral version of it as well, which is a pretty decent record.
What year was that?
2018.
Okay.
So Daltrey did a
I didn't know that.
orchestral, yeah, with a choir, and that's really good. So we all know Pinball Wizard. We all know We're Not Going to Take It / See Me Feel Me. We all know the Acid Queen, and we also all know the song I'm Free. So Tommy stands as number 2. And my number 1 album for me is the greatest album of all time, bar none. Nothing, there's things that come close, but after I heard this album in 1971, and then later that summer, my older brother dragged me to Rochester to see the Who at Silver Stadium. It was the first time I saw them, and it blew me away. But the first time I heard Who's Next, it just, for me, it changed my life. 9 incredible songs. Okay, there wasn't a dud on that album. From Baba O'Reilly's Teenage Lament to the Scream at the End, which I mentioned, It Won't Get Fooled Again. The Song Is Over, which they named their tour, that's on there. Behind Blue Eyes, Going Mobile, Bargain, Getting in Tune, Even That Whistles My Wife, and they're all great. The deluxe edition actually features Pete's complete Lifehouse project that was shelved for this album. And Lifehouse would have been a great album too, with songs like Pure and Easy and Long Live Rock. And I Don't Even Know Myself. Those 3 songs are a really good song. Who songs on their own, but Who's Next is, for me, the greatest album ever made.
All right, Sue.
Nice. So my number 2, I went with Tommy. I think the Pinball Wizard is one of the most unique songs ever. It has so much of everything in it. So, and maybe I don't know what it means either. I don't know, but it's just really cool. The whole album is good. And I think you either enjoy it for what it is or you don't. And my number 1, I went with Who's Next. Again, I found, like, of all of them, it was the most solid for me. I wasn't yet here when it was released. So, and again, I probably didn't hear it for another, I don't know how many years, but it still goes strong. So that's
All
it for
right.
me.
Ray.
So it's all pretty similar at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I got a whole lot to add to what Jeff said. I mean, he described it pretty good. A couple things I'll say about Tommy. First off, I like Elton John's version of Pinball Wizard better. But after the album, I mean, forever and a day, you got used to hearing certain songs, and it's funny because you think about it, it's kind of like almost, I think of The Wall or stuff like that, where these songs weren't really intended to be played as singles or all by themselves,
Right.
because it was
Right.
part of this. Again, after '67, everyone started putting these albums together, these big long stories. And Tommy, literally for more than 50 years, never gave much of a hoot about it, because number 1, I just thought was the greatest far and above. But now, within the last couple of years, I went and I read up on the whole background of the album, and then started listening to the song while I had like all the stories in front of me, and it really just created so much better of an experience, and all the songs made a little bit more sense. So it definitely was a better story than that silly album from '67. But the thing is, Tommy was just, it was well done. It was like, you know, Pete's, shining moment, if you will. I know he's had a few, but Tommy certainly was. And then number one, Jeff put it at number one all time. I'll put it at number three all time. Was just an incredible album for me. You know, being much younger than my friend Jeff Crichton, I'm like a little bit removed. So when that came out, and
Are you
you know,
saying he's
Tommy
Roger
in
Daltrey?
'69 and Who's Next in '71, I wasn't hearing any of that. You know, I'm listening to KB radio and Tie Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree. You
Me
know,
too.
so it was a little bit different. But then once the late '70s and '80s got here, and we're just turning, like I mentioned earlier, just turn into heavy rock, just the scream of they're all wasted, teenage wasteland. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. It was just, you know,
An
just
epiphany.
incredible. But like Jeff said, there wasn't a bad song on that album. And it's like even now, like so much of the Who stuff for me is so dated and I don't need to hear it, but you put Who's Next on and it just shines, man. Bob O'Reilly's so great. Bargain is so great. Going Mobile is so great. The song is over. And then, you know, Won't Get Fooled Again, which is incredible. And then you listen to like Sirius XM, sometimes like the hit radio will play Won't Get Fooled Again. It's like the 4 minute version or something. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'll
But
never understand
yeah,
that.
just a spectacular album, and no other album in their library for me comes anything close to it. No other album in their library even comes is on the same mountain as the top two in my book. So there you have it. The bloody
Agreed.
Who.
Damn.
Ditto. Okay, so you know, Jeff's got some subjective feelings towards the Who and why they're just so great in his memory and his psyche. And I'm going to tell you, I have three lead singers I've always loved. Now, think of this. They've got some commonality here, okay? Got Roger Daltrey, I've got Robert Plant, and I've got Peter Frampton. What do they all have in common? It has nothing to do with their talent or it's their hair.
They all
So
started in the 60s.
and that too. But you know, even Tommy, like you guys were saying, I think it was the movie that actually turned me on to the Who anyways. But there's a song on that album that I don't know all the words to. Like you just mentioned a song title and it just comes into my brain. That's showing you that there's something special about that. And I haven't heard these songs for a long time. I don't go back and listen to the Who. That Tommy's my number two, and yes, my number one is Who's Next. Um, that every single song and that's a that album is one of those pinnacle rock and roll albums that from my youth that will always stay with me. I'll be doing the the Tony Bennett thing and singing those songs in the old folks home and knowing every note. And so those are mine, two and one. I think we're in consensus here, huh?
Yeah.
Except for
Except for the guy who hosts the show. Yeah, it's gonna throw a monkey wrench in there.
yeah,
Real
you just
deep
do
in,
it for the tension.
deep and long now. All right, so 2019, Who, not the Who, and that's my number two. I would have thought
What?
I would have completely thought it was a throwaway record. I would have thought they were calling it in, they were dialing it in, they had no intentions of doing anything. But if you're listening, they're making a statement as to the status of rock at the moment, and a lot of it. There's a final showdown, an acclamation for the band, and it might be the second best final record of all time by a band next to Rush's Clockwork Angels, which
Wow.
no one appreciates either for some reason.
Well,
I
the
think it's
end
because you're
continues.
expecting somebody to do something that they're quite not capable of anymore. All right. And I will stand by this since day one that you don't have to do you all the way through to the end. You can, I mean, Townsend's a very good songwriter. There's some really well written songs here. And Daltrey's voice, people should be astounded that it's at where it's at still. I mean,
Okay.
considering, right? And I enjoyed the record because I didn't have to go like I was going, yeah, all right, and then go, what the hell was that? All right, and that's the reason why it got there because after all this kerbobbling of these albums and these, there was only one album immediately that I didn't have to listen to, that I knew was number one, and it's the same as you guys. Who's next? So I just thought it fitting after all this juxtapositioning and thinking and hurt and my ears and everything I listened to that. All right, so it's who and then who's next as the top one. I just
Well, there you go.
so who's next? It is a ginormous record, and this is 1971. I didn't go looking, but I'm telling you, the albums of 71, you know, what they're surrounded by. That's why it wasn't a number one. There's too much. There was too much they were up against, but that album stands the test of time, like those, and is held in that revere with those. And when Jeff Crichton says he thinks it's the greatest record of all time, I will not argue that. That is really well written, start to finish. It is one of the most cohesively sound records from the beginning to the end as the song choices. I'm sure they didn't write them in that order, but the way they start and end those songs from beginning, the number one to the final track, is purposely thought out, well connected, and it didn't have that god awful production that for some reason they seem to be stapled with, where songs cut out, then it goes to this, then this song is at this elevation and this pitch, this one's higher. It was like they were recorded in different time zones. That doesn't make sense. But anyway, if you're listening that close, and I was really listening that close, so that's mine. Now, let's we're gonna do this thing here, and you can't read it.
Oh, this is too hard. This is too hard.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. I can't do it. My
I'm
power
doing
is
this
cutting
because
out.
the second part of this is the part where I believe Jeff Crichton wants to talk about, and this,
Yeah, but
this
he
is where
left.
this band is, right? So
Right.
here we are. This is the final part of the show where we talk
I know.
about where their position is in the music multiverse, right? So, and I put this up here. You can't read it. I don't know why I did it, but I thought I might be able to do it. So
I can read it.
when you come to it, is this band, is it, and I'll start from the bottom.
Yeah.
A faded memory. The band is merely a shadow of themselves, little relevance except in the past. It's a catalog you listen to less often, one of the albums, and leave the rest. Opening act is next. There's something special, albums and songs here, and they have something to prove, more maybe to prove, or potentially they are comfortable with where they're at, and that's the opening act. Then it gets to club level. They have some good albums, songs, but not as reliable, nor are they as inventive. Then relevant. The albums are getting much better as they move forward, maybe even hitting their stride and truly on their way to potential greatness. Iconic is next, very memorable, very influential to the listener, and industry trend setting and generational. And then legendary. Entire catalog is near perfection, reliable, inventive, sincere, and totally influential. So we're going to start with Jeff Crichton. And this would be a perfect time for you to leads into your spiel.
You know, it's the top three albums, without question, or maybe my top five, are legendary. So I'll go there. My top five are legendary. The next five, maybe 6 and 7 are iconic, and then after that, maybe they're an opening act.
So where does that leave them in the grand scheme? I mean, obviously they're already
That's
in the
what
Rock and
makes
Roll
this
Hall of Fame,
hard. That's what makes this
right?
hard.
So where do they lie in the grand scheme? I mean, with you putting that album at one of the greatest albums of all time, if not the greatest album of all
The
time,
greatest.
I can kind of hear that. I can see it. I can feel it. I even said when you had vacated the show, I thought you were pissed off at me.
No, you know what? You know what? Being that, I'll say it anyway. Even though they'll maybe albums for me, 8 or 9 to 13 are not very good, but they are my third favorite band of all time.
Yeah, well, because there's songs there on every album.
And if you were to include, the whole gamut of their albums, right? Like the box set Maximum R&B is fantastic. Live at Leeds might be the greatest live album ever made for me, ever made. No. No,
No.
Pink Floyd can't even stand on the same podium as the Who for me.
Oh, Allman Brothers.
That recording
And
is
well,
outstanding.
yeah. Well, Phil Maurice would be right up there with Who Live at Leeds. And then there's the live album that it took a back seat, but didn't come out until many decades later. But from the same year and the same tour, Live at Hall University is equally as good as Live at Leeds. So because of that, what the heck? They're my third favorite band. They're legendary.
Okay.
As a
There you
band,
go.
they are legendary.
He
I would
committed.
imagine
He
that live
committed.
they are legendary. That would be my assumption. I've never seen them. Let's get over to Sue for her
You don't want
opinion.
to go see them now.
No. Well, it wouldn't be the Who, it'd be the two.
Be the two.
The-
Well, wait a minute. You two? What? Oh.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going with the legendary. I agree that there are definitely some holes for me within the different albums, but the songs that have stuck, I mean, you could put them up against any upcoming band right now and they'd still blow them out of the water.
Yep.
I think like Ray was saying, for me, again, my age when I started to pick up on them, they did have that heavier metal feel, which I've always been drawn to kind of the classic rock. And so I just think they do such a good job of balancing and they are creative and I don't know, very inventive. So, and for me to enjoy them still where I came in, I guess, on their ride and still today, it has to be legendary. So,
Can I say one more thing?
You may.
No.
Oh,
All right. So maybe the best time I ever saw them was the night after Cincinnati when they played in 1979, the night after the Cincinnati incident, when people got trampled and got killed at the
Mhm.
Cincinnati concert in 1979. They played here the night after.
Oh.
It was, you could tell that the band had something extra to give, and that has gone down in my book as the greatest live show I've ever seen in my life. They just tore it up that night, and everybody that was at that show in the old odd, could tell you that they were mentally exhausted from watching that show.
Mhm.
It was that special.
I love that. That's a great story.
Mr. Ray, it's your
I
turn.
mean, in looking at your descriptions, I mean, between legendary and iconic, I mean, it's not like every album, like we talked about, but I don't know. I think it's just maybe does them a disservice not to call them legendary. I was leaning more towards iconic based on that, but they are much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
The Stones, the Beatles, and the Who came out, and then there was everybody else. Everybody else, by the way, Jeffrey.
There was one more band in there.
Yeah.
Wait till we do
So
that.
I guess I would have to call them legendary just because of their impact and some of the greats of later years and the way they just pay such tribute and how it meant so much to them. Like Pearl Jam being the prime example. Just what an influence they had on a band like that. Yeah, they're legends. Roger and Pete are definitely legends.
Right. Damn, your turn.
Well,
in the barrel.
the end continues, so I'm only going to give them iconic. They still have room to become legendary for me. So, yeah, this was hard for me. There's no way that they fit into the bottom descriptions just because of the other whatever you've got. There's just too much room for it not to be fitting for them, or to they're beyond that, even though to me I don't know a lot of the obscure songs on their catalog. So that's what makes it hard for me, is these other albums in their catalog of 12 albums. There's so many songs that I don't feel are good or memorable or innovative. So that's why I'm just going with iconic.
Okay. Excuse me. All right.
Don't hate me, boys.
I don't think there's anything wrong with iconic.
No, there
The
isn't.
skin off my nose.
Good. I don't have many friends.
All right. So yeah, I am. This is a band where the live albums are almost the quintessential. Besides Who's Next. When I wanted to ask this, but I mean I don't think anybody. Well, your wife saw him in '68. You said.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how many of those non-singles, right? Well, not. It's weird because the singles are these are kind of weird sometimes, but like they played My Generation. The question, but did they ever play Boris the Spider? You know, in the
Sure.
okay, in like the
Yeah.
'70s. I don't know. Did that
Oh
drop
yeah,
off the list once you
they
had?
were playing Boris into the 80s.
Yeah. Okay. So
That was
that's
that was Entwistle's, Entwistle got two songs per show. Boris was one and My Wife was the other.
okay. Well, the My Wife one that makes sense, but yeah, I kind of wonder because there's some like the Eagles, right? All right, give that guy his song, all right, and then I'll go get a popcorn. But legendary for sure because the live performances, the way the song. Okay, so Roger Daltrey, in and of himself, I would say he's the hard rock part of the band. That vocal reaches that point. Sometimes the
Mhm.
guitar does not match. You know, it's kind of that jangly thing, and he's above it. He's the soaring, heavy rock vocal, and he can do everything else too in a way. But he always astounds me because
You know what though? Early on, those early records, he didn't have like that toughness in his
no, he
voice.
wasn't. He was
He
sharing
he,
vocals
he
too.
had like a
Yeah.
higher tenor
Yeah,
that he would use, and it was
Yep.
for those songs it was good. He really
Yeah.
didn't start getting the muscle into it until I don't know what, the Tommy album,
well, till
maybe a
till
little bit.
till everything till something dropped. I don't know what.
Oh, stop.
I was sitting there going, I'm listening to this, I'm going, it is him, isn't it? There's some times where I just went, I thought maybe it's not him, or he found another register, and I think that it's incredible because not many singers do that kind of thing. They don't find another place.
Right. True.
He did what year was that? His solo albums are really uneven. Daltrey's.
Yeah.
But he did a blues album with Wilco Johnson, and it came out in 11 years ago, called "Going Back Home." It's really pretty good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I don't think I listened to that one. All right. Well, I think that's
Cool.
all of us, right? We did it.
Yeah, we did it.
We did it.
We conquered the Who.
Good
Nobody's
job.
dead.
No.
The
We're all
Mighty
still
Who.
friends.
I'm gonna get hate mail, but hey, it's all right. So
Won't be the first time.
So
Thumbs up.
next we're keeping in the same frame in this. So when Ray makes his statement and says Zeppelin, Beatles, Stones, and we say the Who, right? These four band. Is this band in consideration? And this will be next month's catalog review show. The only band across the pond that could compete. The Doors.
Mm.
You just
Oh.
made Ray
you're
happy to
talking.
USA,
die.
USA, USA.
So that'll
Now
be-
you're talking. Move over,
right.
Raj.
All right, we're on the web at beyondyourradio.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, of course, articles, videos, this podcasting maybe someday. We always, it's about albums, bands, artists, anything we can get our hands on. I want to thank the panel for doing this. I want to thank those who are watching that keep watching and stayed to the very end to hear all this. That's why we do this. Thanks for watching and happy listening.
Bye.